Hey, family, it's Hitting the Angles again. We're here to discuss some current events, and then we're also going to talk about this crazy Facebook crash. How's it going, Arthur and Anthony?
Going great.
Wonderful.
Glad to have you guys here with me today. This Facebook crash. Now, we know that everything that's done is strategic, obviously. So even though it seemed like it was a mishap, it was a mistake, people thought it was a glitch going on, not really sure. I am inclined to believe that it was actually done on purpose because people are more attracted to the things that they feel like they can't have. So if people feel like, they're able to utilize a platform where they are constantly being seen and receiving recognition and acknowledgement, and then that's taken away, that actually affects a lot of people in different ways. And I was appreciative of it because I don't participate in it on a large scale because for me, it's kind of a way to keep up with people. I celebrate people's birthdays and anniversaries and, accomplishments or what have you. But as far as it being an absolute necessity to participate in on a daily basis, the crash really didn't affect me. How about you, Anthony?
Well, because of my disability of my eyesight, I really don't actually look on it as much as I did back in the past. So it doesn't bother me at all.
Makes perfect sense. Arthur, what you got?
Well, I didn't even know what had happened until somebody in the office came and told me, Facebook had been down. I didn't really pay attention to it. But then something else too blew my mind is what happened. What was it, when was the actual crash? Was it Monday?
I'm not even sure.
Because didn't the 60 Minutes story come out Sunday?
I believe it did. So that just lets you know how detached we actually are, because we're not even sure when it happened. We just heard through the grapevine that it did.
But the things that did blow my mind is the issues that Facebook is having, not only with the crash, with some of these algorithms that they're creating now that they're saying are biased, and to the point that they're going out there we're pushing people to certain topics. Because now Congress got involved with this, and this is becoming a big issue with Facebook and how they do business and how they choose what goes down somebody's feed. And it's becoming an issue with Facebook. And we're going to see how Facebook is able to get around it, because they were like, I think it's when, if you were a conservative, they automatically push certain things to you so you can see those things. Some issues they brought to you. And then it's amazing that how a company so large who says, hey, listen, we're open free market, that we allow open communication. And then they're telling you, hey, yeah, even though you can say, and we keep this an open platform, we're going to choose what you can hear and what you can't hear. So how open is it?
Right. It's open to the point that they decide because they're in control. And I think that when we're utilizing these platforms, we need to be mindful of that. I mean, you can create all the videos or podcast or, pictures that you want, but what actually gets pushed out to the public is, up to the discretion of the owner. So you have to be mindful of that when you utilize these platforms, that, when you are not in charge, then you are subject to whatever the rules and policies and regulations are of whatever that particular entity is. And so I think that people have gotten comfortable because initially Facebook was pretty much, a space to be creatively free to say and do pretty much whatever you want. And now, because people are so free in, their ideas and their feelings, they've placed some restrictions on it, because I'm constantly hearing about friends that are in Facebook jail and these kind of things. So I fortunately have never been arrested or,
Arthur's a regular.
Absolutely. Watch your associations, guys. You never know who you're connected to. So we are connected to a repeat offender right now. But regardless of that, we're going to maintain our relationship.
Yes. I have done some time with Facebook. I have a question, though, for you, Mr. Anthony. Because, we talk about investments and we really hadn't went into it. How do you play these issues with Facebook, how do you play them when you're buying stocks and all that? How do you look at a play on Facebook now with all the issues Facebook's having?
Well, if I was wanting to short a stock, Facebook would be an excellent candidate. And if I was wanting to buy into Facebook at a lower price, I would wait for a headline to come out, and they surely going to drop at least 10%. And that'll be the time I would buy, because you're not going to run Facebook off, because a lot of these politicians, these lobbyists, they getting paid under the table. You know, you got Pelosi up there. She probably a millionaire. How you become a millionaire, you know, being a congressman?
Very interesting point. But I think that is part of, you know, what people are not really seeing, that, you know, the profile that's being portrayed on Facebook and what actually exists is usually not one and the same. So a lot of people are portraying certain things. You know, I get a lot of friend requests from people who are, you know, unbeknownst to me, I have never seen or heard anything from them. So what the attraction is, I'm not really sure, you know, if they're attracted to the content that's on my page, or am I an easy target? I'm not really sure, you know, what the buy-in is in terms of who they send these messages out to. But I recognize that, you know, a lot of these businesses are a numbers game. So it's important for you to get as many people to buy in as you possibly can, which makes perfect sense. But I think that, you know, tapping into what you said sometime before, Anthony, is that it's very difficult for you to do business with people that you haven't built a rapport and a relationship with. Talk about that.
Well, I'm going to tell you, as far as the friends go, most people might have in their lifetime might have 2 or 3 friends. So when you tell me you got 2,400 or 3,000 friends, you might have 2 friends on there that actually follow you, that you actually communicate. That's including your family members. So, you know, I don't pay them. I probably wouldn't spend as much time as I normally would on there. It's not, you know, because basically they try to direct the information to you that they want you to hear and what have you. So I know it's biased against black and brown. So I've never been really a Facebook or a Zuckerberg fan. I think he's a crook.
That's an interesting and honest perspective. I appreciate that. Arthur, what are your thoughts?
I am not a big fan of his either, for the fact that this should be an open platform. And I feel like my news, and I understand if you got 5,000 friends like some of us do, it's impossible to send 5,000 people down your news feed. But how this system is able to decide which one of those friends I can hear and which one of these ones I do see. Because there's some people on Facebook I don't communicate with at all. And every day they're in my feed. Then there's other people I communicate a lot, and I barely get, and they're posting all the time, and I barely see their information. And so it kind of puzzled me, how is this person is in my feed all the time? How is even my news feed, my live feed, or whatever this new feed is, their stuff comes up first on anything of mine, but I don't communicate with this person like that on Facebook or even in the real world.
Right.
You know, we'll say, hey, and I may comment every once in a while, but there's other people I comment a lot that I barely see the information, see the things that they have out there coming down the line. And it does bother me, and it does take away from, I feel like, my freedom as to this is supposed to be my community of my people, so I can see it now. My community is being chosen. Someone else is telling me who can come down my feed, what I can and what I can't see. You know, because if Mark Zuckerberg saying things, oh, Jesus Christ, that comes down my line. And I see everything he does. And how is they can make sure that I get his information, but of my other friends, I can't see it all.
So that means there's definitely a dynamic at play that we need to figure out, maybe a workaround, because I don't think a lot of people are addressing that issue, even though initially it may have seemed like, you know, the people that we're most frequently in contact with consistently showed up in our feeds. And now all of a sudden, you know, there's been a revamp to how information is put out on each of our pages and how we are connecting with the people that we're closest to. So we may need to look at some parameters to help us to figure out what's a way to address that so that we can make sure that, we are being fairly treated, because a lot of times we just go with whatever we're given and we don't argue the point. And so it's a lot of times that you have not because you ask not.
Now, I understand with Facebook, we give up a lot of freedoms. When we sign and we log on to messengers and all that, we give them access. But the one thing that gets me, if I have a phone call and I hang up, don't sell me that product as soon as I get off the phone. Don't let me know you listening that hard to my conversations that you're going to push that product on me and try to get this. And that's where I think is going to be the biggest issue with them is how much are they into our lives? How much information are they really recording, and what are they doing with that information?
Oh, well, I definitely think they're highly ingrained. They're paying attention. They've got, millions invested in seeing what people are constantly searching and looking up. Google has a monopoly on what is the most researched topics and things like that. How are they able to make these claims if they're not putting, millions of dollars into research to see what people are watching and looking for and desiring, and making sure that those particular items are coming straight to you without you having a direct conversation with them? Obviously, they have put things in place to make sure that the things that they feel are attractive to us as a community, as a people, as individuals, females and males, that information is constantly coming to us because, those are the marketing tactics that they know will continue to make them profitable.
And then personally, I think that the government and Facebook and Twitter and all these companies are in cahoots with one another. And they, on the surface, trying to make it seem like they're at odds with one another, trying to throw us off. Because I know for a fact when I worked for the prison system, those 10 years, we were able to monitor, and I hate to use the word, a person that was incarcerated, a convict, but you able to monitor. If you're trying to find somebody that's doing something illegal, the best way to do it is track them on Facebook or Twitter. They're going to be on one of those social media networks.
Wow, that's powerful information, and I'm sure there's a lot of truth to that. And
That's
I will say,
yeah,
there it makes sense to me, that businesses believe in commingling and connecting, because there is benefit in coming together and working together. But I feel like part of what the issue is that, there are a lot of these companies benefiting from our usage of their platforms, but are we really utilizing it to benefit us? And so I feel like, what we may need to focus on is figuring out, can we create a platform where we're not at the mercy of other people's decisions, but we are actually creating a platform where we have the liberty and the freedom, to operate in a way where we're not restricted to other people's ideals about what they think that we want. We should be able to tell people this is what we want, and we're able to connect with other people who are in agreement with that and make the investment so that we can have that platform in place.
I think the only way that's going to happen, we're going to have to separate like we did back in the day when we had our own drugstore, hospitals. We're going to have to do our own social media, and eventually it'll catch on.
I mean, and I think that is a slow and steady process. I don't think that is an overnight sensation, but I definitely think it's something that, we need to push, because, a lot of times we're not even aware of the influence that we carry, how powerful we are in terms of how we affect other people's decisions. But I think like all of us are influencers in some type of way. And so I think it would be beneficial to have some, communication with other people just to see, if they would be interested, in maybe trying something out for 30 days or, coming up with something, because we know that we have a lot of creative people in the world that might be able to create something, off the dome that could be utilized, in the same way that we utilize Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, all those things. Someone came up with those ideas. So I'm pretty sure that there's somebody that could come up with something that could be the next hottest thing. Why are we not, connecting and working with each other to be the creators of whatever that next big thing is?
And I'm going to say this about Facebook. When Facebook years ago, I used to love it. And I'm going to tell you, for small business, it was a great platform to advertise on. It was easy to platform. They wasn't making the kind of money. They wasn't as large as they was. And it was really an opportunity for small business to get their name out there. Now, because that company is so large, and it takes so many billions of dollars to operate, I think they sort of abandoned the small business. They're not out there where there's the opportunity. If you're a small accounting firm, you're a small barbershop or a small business, where you can go in and actually advertise on that platform and get the results that you want and do it at a cost effective where it's worth your while. Because now, between having someone to create you a nice ad and placing the ad and running it, you can be out a lot of money really quick. And most small business and that's why it's a problem with advertising, is they just don't have the resources, because most of them are just keeping the doors open.
Right.
And if they're just keeping the doors open, as important as marketing. Marketing has to be very important, because we look at McDonald's, we look at Walmart. They advertise every day, 3 or 4 times a day. I mean, I don't care if on the radio you're going to hear Walmart commercial. If you're on the internet, you're going to see it. If you're on TV, McDonald's the same way. So we know the value of it, but how does a small business owner get to that point? And that's something that I think that void, now there's a big gap, and we need that gap of somewhere where small business get out there, get in front of their audience, and really at a cost-effective way that they could grow their business and continue to grow, where it is now, where Facebook is just so pricey. Even when you say, when you look at going in there and doing sponsorships, those things are out of this world now. Sponsorships
Right.
used to not be that bad, but now do a sponsorship with somebody, it's crazy what they're asking for it.
Well, I think one of the things we need to keep in mind is whenever something's new and fresh, obviously, whatever the initial price is going to be beneficial for a large group of people. And then as it continues to grow, it is going to become exorbitant because it has no choice but to increase. So I think one of the things that we need to keep in mind is a lot of times we will jump on the bandwagon, but it's so far behind the power curve that we're not benefiting from it. So we need to be on the ground floor of things, just like what we're doing right now. There are a lot of people, that we may be able to work with collectively, to get more information out to people who need it. But the importance is, how quickly do you come on board to agree with something that can benefit a multitude?
And Anthony, I'm going to ask you a question, because I like that question she went with. And I think because you do investments, there has to be a portion of you taking that risk in something totally new.
Right.
There has to be another part say, hey, this company is going to give me the same year-over-year growth, so I need this in my portfolio. How do you, and this is the same obstacle of business owner, how do you manage that? How do you manage the fact that I got to take this risk, and the risk coming at such a high cost, and I also got to stick with something that's stable, but I know it's not going to give me the growth I want?
Well, I think if it's in an area that is attractive, as far as in the right market at the right time, and that the business is producing some kind of revenue or potential revenue, and it's continuously innovating toward new products or doing something new within the company, and the CEO, keyword CEO is very important.
Right.
Do they have a good person that's in charge running the company, and is he taking care of his employees? We in an era where you have some companies that are well-oiled machines, and I usually refer back to Chick-fil-A. And when I go through Chick-fil-A, it's not too often that I don't find happy people, associates working for that company, and it transferred from the person that's in charge. And this is a company that don't work on Sunday, and they going against the grain, and they are successful, very successful. And so I use that model. Any company that I invest in, is it kind of mirroring, being successful and making sure the atmosphere is conducive to being successful.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of times people don't even realize, the background of, how a company was formulated, what are their principles, ideas. Sometimes if it's attractive to the eye, people don't go any deeper than that because, a lot of times people are just attracted to the surface level things. But as you mature and you recognize the importance of, the things that you truly want to invest in, especially if you want them to be long lasting, that you have to dive a little deeper just to make sure that it coincides with what you are in agreement with. Because sometimes you're guilty by association, if that makes sense, especially in business. So,
Exactly.
you can destroy relationships by being involved with somebody that, people don't have the same morals or ideas and, their tactics or the way that they go about gaining, financial benefit for themselves is at the expense of other people. And I think that a lot of times small businesses have the difficulty in trying to attract people to them because they have to go much further beyond what larger businesses do because they have no choice but to operate in the integrity and the principles that they've built their business on. And a lot of times we don't want to take that risk because we're just so comfortable and complacent with these larger companies.
So let me get this right. Understand it, because both of y'all went here. I didn't go here and say this. You're both saying that usually the biggest problem with a small business is the owner. If you got to look at him first as the struggles, and if there's problems, that's where it's starting at, with the owner of that business. It's not the customers, it's not the employees, it's not the whole world discriminating against that one person. It's the way that owner value and see things. So it's important how an owner views things and see things as far as his personal life and his business life, because on that level, that means his business life and personal life are no different.
Pretty much.
Exactly. It starts at the head. It's, if you got a company where the CEO is making $2 million a year, the employees they're barely able to pay their light bill, and you're not, during this situation when we dealt with COVID, you had some CEOs that took money out of their pocket to make sure their employees were straight.
Right.
But and you got some companies that put out profit sharing for their employees, and they doing the things that they used to do back in the day when companies were well run and employees could actually save money in their retirement. When you're doing those type of things, and the people, associates around you know that you care, they're doing everything in their power to keep you successful.
So
that just makes sense. Go ahead, Arthur.
So you're saying it's hard work. So I'm not, because Miss Samiya
already talked.
Yes, because Samiya already hit on it one thing. So all those people that's hitting me up in my feed talking about they can give me business credit and I don't have to have no credit. I don't have to have no collateral. Don't even have to really have a good business. And they can give me all this money to start a company. That's not the angle. The angle is coming in there doing hard work. Stop trying to get rich quick and just doing the work.
Yeah. Stepping stones and building blocks.
Well, getting the money is one thing, but are you going to be keeping and maintaining it? I mean, I could give you $1 million right now, Arthur, but if you're not going to do the proper things in the foundation of your company, and taking care of your employees is the main thing.
Right.
And you got to have a good concept. You just can't say, okay, I'm just going to come up with so-and-so business, and it's not something that everybody wants and needs right now.
And I know we didn't get off subject, but I have to go, and I'm keep going into these points because we get breaking some good points. So, and this is about credit, and a real big nugget here. No one is going to lend somebody money that needs it in business. That's just not a smart idea. You lend money to business that have a solid plan that you see there's going to be growth in it. So if you're bad in your personal finances, you're not going to start a company and people are going to say, Oh, we're going to look, you ain't paid a one of your bills on time in your personal life, but mysteriously, you're going to do right by this business. Nobody buys that. And people with money, would you even invest in a company like that? Did you see just making bad decisions? Say, I see you doing bad, but this time you're going to make it. And I'm going to give you $1 million of my money where I got another company that's doing everything right. And I can invest in that company and see my growth. You have to, it's very important that you realize you got to have good credit. And taking bad credit and try to start a business is not going to get you the loan you want. And there are scams out there where people will lend you money. Don't get me wrong. They are out there,
Yes,
but
they
they are scams. If you borrowing money for a business, you paying over 10% interest. Reality is most companies don't make enough profit to start managing loans with interest rate of that on that magnitude. And you have to think, why is somebody willing to give me a loan and believe in me and want me to pay 25% if they think I'm all that good in business?
So that's some wisdom that I think a lot of people need to utilize because, of course, there are a lot of people with great business ideas. And there are a lot of companies, that have started up because people are passionate about what they want to do and they believe that they should start it, but they don't have all those foundational things that we've talked about before that is going to make it a solid business that can maintain, throughout different seasons. And that's part of the issue. Some people are so hungry for money because of the state of affairs of the world right now that people are creating things that don't have staying power, and they're not utilizing, the wisdom and the knowledge that's out there to help them create something that they know, one, is actually something that people are looking for, because just because you're passionate about it and you think it's a great thing doesn't mean that everybody's going to buy into it.
Thank you.
So you got to do your research and you got to figure out what's current, what is going to be something that's interesting and not to just one group, but, you got to know who your target audience is. And I think a lot of times we don't know that. What you got, Anthony?
I tell you a show that I love looking at. I don't always like what's being said, but over the years and what have you, Shark Tank.
Absolutely.
They ask that particular prospective company, do you know your numbers?
Right.
Do you understand how you're making money? And when they can't explain it, they say, okay, you can't explain how you're making money. How do you know your numbers? They say, well, we ain't going to invest in you.
Which
so
makes all the sense.
Yeah. So you have to be explained. If you can't explain it, then you probably don't have a good business.
Right. Got to have a solid business plan.
The reality of if you cannot write it and you can't explain it, you can't make it happen. So if people come in my office all the time. I want to start this. I want to start a restaurant. I want to start a trucking company. I want to start a clothing line. I want to franchise my business. And then when we start talking numbers, I don't know. Well, you have to know this because at some point you're going to need money, and if you can't explain the numbers, no one's going to be a part of it.
Right.
No one wants to be a part of a business where you asking people, what's your break even? I don't know. Okay, so how many sales do you have to make a day before you know you're making money? Those are signs that you're going to be out of business soon. What's my P&L? What's my profit and loss? Literally, I have people who come into me and tell me the Square they use for the accounting software. Square is not an accounting software. You need actually a physical accounting software to keep up with your numbers. And the ones I love is when you come in my office and you say, hey, listen here. I say, well, what's your balance in your bank? You say, hold on, let me call the bank. I give you one. You come back again. I say, well, let's talk about this. What's the balance? Once again, you calling the bank. That's a sign to me that you got someone else managing your money that has no reason to help you win, because the bank make money off you making mistakes.
Absolutely.
And so if you're not managing it, and if you're not viewing, going over your data, and if you don't put accounting and marketing, legal, you don't value those things in the business, I show you business is struggling, and I show you business that slowly will go out of business. And just the reality is, most of them do not survive if they do not make those things important. And we can talk about them till we blue in the face. And so many business will not value those things. And so many business cannot figure out when they need money why they can't get it. When they make bad business decisions, why they made it. Because you have no way to gauge nothing you're doing.
Very important.
So that would be a good example of why most companies, if they have problem with their employees, it starts at the head.
Yes, it does. And that's why it's important to get feedback. And I think a lot of times, I know that, sometimes smaller companies are actually better at that than larger companies because once companies become large, sometimes their investment in people is not as deep as when it's smaller because you're more close knit when you have a smaller group of people working together because that it's going to take a lot more in order to maintain, that business. And I think that when you get away from that, then it takes away from the quality of the business. And I don't think some people understand that because they're looking at the overall grandness of what this business is going to look like. They have stars in their eyes and they're so excited, about starting a business, but they're not really sure about all the ins and outs of what that looks like. When you're having a bad month, do you just tank the business and give up? Or, do you dig in a little deeper and figure out, how you're going to make this thing stay afloat? And do you go to other people and become vulnerable and say, hey, I really need some help? Because a lot of times people don't want to expose their weaknesses. But sometimes that's the exact thing that will save you because there are people that are willing to help you if you're just honest about what state you're in.
And I keep going back to Anthony because Anthony does investments.
Right.
At the end of the day, we can feed Anthony all the data. And I know Anthony does research because I do research with him. He calls me early in the morning and we get up very early and we go days and doing research. But still, you have to make a call. And you have to take all what you understand about the data, what you know about historical other things, and what you have to look at it on a micro and a macro thing. Okay, on a small level, this is what happened. On a large level, this is what happened. Then you got to make a decision. And that's what makes success to me in being an investment or a business owner. At some point, if you don't have the right, you're either guessing. And one thing Anthony did when I got with him, we have a fund. It's our throwaway fund. We invest in risky companies we can't find a lot of information in. We hope to hit a home run. But that's like 2 to 3% of our portfolio.
Gotcha.
Nobody's going to go hungry if those companies go out of business. But then our other business that we invest in, those businesses, we take more time. And Anthony will ask me 1,000 questions. What you think? Why you do this? Why'd you make that decision? Why didn't you sell this? He's not going to tell me to sell, but he would push me to want me to make my own decision and want me to take the same way he makes decisions and make it, which I really like about him. He taught me a lot about investments on that end. But you have to be able to make a decision as an owner. And if you got bad data and if you're guessing, what's your success rate, Anthony, if you're guessing in investments?
9 times out of 10 is going to be 0.
Those are bad numbers.
Same
now,
thing.
I give you a good example how to critically think about whether or not to invest in a company. Now, we're going through this situation with COVID. You got some people that don't want to take the vaccination, so we kind of going back and forth with people feeling comfortable working on a job. They mandating it at some places.
Right.
Those are CEOs that are concerned not just by mandate. They're mandating because they want their whole staff to feel comfortable. They can come to work and not bring it home to their family. So it ain't because they try to just be a mean, ruler or whatever, take your rights away. You don't have no right to make somebody sick and die.
That's
number one.
So true.
Good point. And you got people crying about it I'm former military myself. When you're in the military, you are mandated to take measles, all these different shots. So you go into all these different countries. So they already were taking shots. So what's the big deal about taking this back? It's all political.
Yes, it is.
It's not just political, but it's a race thing and political. And it's a bunch of nonsense. So some people, unfortunately, and I know this is going to bring an uproar, somebody got to die. They're going to have to die. And, You go back to the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh didn't want to let the people go, and guess what happened? His people died
Right.
in order for him to wake up, and that's what's going to occur. We had schools. That's why I said we're going to have to separate. The only way we're going to be able to teach and what have you, real education about history, we're going to have to be able to teach our people like we did back in the day, because it was completely black education. Of course, we were underfunded, but back then our kids had pride about themselves. They weren't worrying about nobody necessarily shooting them or whatever, feeding them. They had to worry about none of those things.
Right.
They shouldn't have to worry about those things going to school every day.
Makes sense to me. I fully agree. You know what? We have definitely had some angles that we hit today that I'm not sure that we initially thought we were going to tap into, but it's good to get different perspectives, because sometimes I think that, life is different for all of us, especially in terms of our perspective. So we're able to, connect in a way where we can see each other's ideas and perspectives. And that's beneficial because we can make decisions not just based off what we think and believe, but how it affects other people. Because that's the bottom line. If you think that, what's going on in the world only affects you, then you are living in a very small box. And unfortunately, there are some people walking around with that mentality that, they're the only one experiencing certain things. But fortunately, we have the opportunity to share the benefit of our expertise and, our wisdom and our lessons with people, so that they recognize that, we can identify with some things that other people are dealing with, but there are solutions out there. And that's what we want to spend more time discussing, not just the issues and the problems that are going on, but what is the solution? What are we coming up with that's going to help us get this thing on track so that, life can be a little bit better? Because, we can throw everybody a pity party, but is anybody going to have a celebration is the question. And
exactly.
I think all of us want each other to win. And so I'm excited about, the ways that we're going to win by continuously bringing our thoughts together and hitting these angles. So thank you all for joining us today. And I hope you'll be back with us again soon.
Yes. And remember also, this is open communication. You can more than happy if you disagree with us, please post it. If you know a better solution than we're giving, because we want to give this knowledge to everyone, please write a comment, leave a comment so that we can expose people to different viewpoints and different ways of saying things. What we truly want out of here is success in your family, in your home, and in your community.
Absolutely.
If we hit those three angles, the rest of it will then just blossom to the world. But we take everyone on this platform to not just listen, to also respond back and tell us feedback so that we can go ahead on maybe educate us as well as we educate someone else.
Yeah.
And I want to thank everybody that's been listening to the platform. Like and share. Remember that.
Yeah. And please subscribe. We want you to be able to get this information, get notifications when we're going to be on again. We want to build our community so that we can share with like-minded people and even with some that may not think like us. So we ask you all to do as much as you possibly can to connect with us. And like Arthur said, leave us comments and feedback so we know what things we're doing well and what we need to improve on, because we all want to grow and be better. Have a great one, guys.